Another model that's been talked about a great deal has been the Canada style, the CETA model. How would that benefit Londoners?
I think any trade deal is going to benefit, any trade deal rather than no deal is going to benefit London, especially as the financial centre of as far as I'm concerned, of the world. But the Canada deal, of course, is quite silent on those financial services. And one of the inadequacies of the withdrawal agreement that was first of all negotiated by Theresa May and subsequently by Boris Johnson is that they remain relatively silent on financial services. I should remind people how important they are, those financial services, that service industry is to London. And if it's important to London, it's important to the economy of the whole country.
Financial services are one of our biggest exports.
Absolutely.
How can we ensure that that remains the same after this transition period?
But I think we need a good relationship with the rest of Europe. And I think that currently the attitude of this sort of buccaneering attitude that the government has got post-Brexit is not one that lends itself to future closer alignment and arrangement with the rest of the EU. I think there's been a great deal of negativity, possibly on both sides of the argument. I think there needs to be now a lot more positivity about the relationship we can have with the rest of Europe.
So many businesses in London. Obviously trade is massive, it's very important. How can Britain and could Britain become a world leader in sort of liberalising trade?
I think that's what the splitting off from the EU has given us. It has given us that ability to negotiate other deals and have different models of trade with the rest of the world. I'm quite keen on us seizing the opportunity of what is going to be one of the biggest markets in the future, and that is Sub-Saharan Africa. Currently, it's people look at Sub-Saharan Africa and you look at the GDPs and you think, well, why bother on such a small amount on what's a very small fry in overall. But actually, this is a continent with an enormous potential, and it would be wise if we started to be able to get some kind of closer trading relationships with them before it booms. You know, it's not smart to try and get close trading relationships with Japan or with China. The sort of boat has sailed insofar as those deals are concerned. But getting in early on emerging markets is something that we should be able to do with this new relationship that we have with the EU.
And how can we ensure that we are not neglecting emerging markets like Nigeria or like places like India and Pakistan?
We've got to go there. We just got to go there, and we just got to remove some of the obstacles and barriers that people have about trading with countries like Nigeria. Even Nigerians will recognise that their country has not a good reputation with regard to things like, at the moment, with regard to business. But the fact of the matter is it's no more difficult doing business in Nigeria or many other African countries as it is no worse than anywhere else in the world. It's other challenging market than emerging markets in the world. So I think it's a really good idea for us to help the confidence of investors in Africa and traders with Africa to do those deals.
From the 1st of January 2021, EU and non-EU citizens will be treated equally. Freedom of movement will be replaced with the UK's new style points-based system to cater for the most highly skilled workers. I mean, do you think this is the only immigration solution?
You know, I'm a conservative and I believe in freedom, and part of those freedoms is the freedom to move. And actually, one of the good things about the EU and the single market was the freedom of movement. I want more freedom, not less of it. And if we now end up with a situation where our citizens are entitled to travel to fewer places without the say-so of governments, then I think that's a backward step. I do believe that we should have some kind of freedom of movement relationship, and indeed some of those new markets that we're talking about, new deals that we're talking about, perhaps with India and Pakistan and places like that, those governments are talking about more freedom of movement as a result, as a payment for some of the trade deals that we want to reach with them. Freedom is a good thing, and unfortunately, unfortunately, it's not terribly fashionable in the Conservative Party at the moment, but I hope that will change.
Given the fact that London has a different ban when it comes to things like the minimum wage, do you think that maybe there should be a separate ban for immigration?
No, I don't. No, I don't. This is a long rehearsed argument. You can't have two classes of citizens in a country. And if you may remember, the Germans tried this with the old Gastarbeiter system. It didn't work. It doesn't aid social integration. It creates an uneven economy. The standards should be the same for everyone. There is a minimum wage running in the United Kingdom, and that should apply to everybody who works here. Otherwise, we are opening the door to all sorts of exploitation.
The mayoral election's just around the corner.
Yes.
I mean, backing Sean Bailey. But are you not worried about the threat posed from a more sort of centrist candidate like Rory Stewart, and the fact he's got quite a global and international appeal?
Yes, I mean, if you want to run London like bits of Afghanistan, that's fine, but I don't think that experience particularly works here. And to date, he hasn't come up with much that's novel. He seemed to have identified a lot of issues which are actually the responsibility of borough councils. And I think that perhaps if he does care about those issues, then perhaps he should run for to be a councillor first, or perhaps become a leader of the council before he becomes a mayor of a city. Being mayor of London is not about grassroots stuff, curiously enough. I know people like to talk about those issues because they're easier, but actually it's about long-term strategies. It's about investment, huge capital investment. It's about having a vision for the future of this city that's not all about park benches, but it's more about the huge opportunity, unleashing the huge opportunities that this city has for the future. And unfortunately, Rory has not addressed any of those issues, and I think he's going to be humiliated.
Andrew, thanks very much. Cheers.
Thank you.